There comes a moment in life when everything changes, not because the world shifts, but because you do. This is the story of a woman who hit rock bottom and refused to stay there. She faced her pain, her fear, her doubt, and turned them into power. What began as a breaking point became the moment she awakened her true strength. Her story isn't about luck. It's about choice, courage, and transformation. Because the truth is, one moment, one decision, one awakening can redefine everything. This is the moment that changed her life forever. There comes a moment in every person's life when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. For her, that moment didn't arrive with fireworks or applause. It came quietly, almost invisibly, a night of tears when her heart finally whispered, "I can't live like this anymore." She had spent years hiding behind smiles, pretending everything was fine, convincing herself that if she just held on a little longer, things would get better. But deep inside, she knew the truth. Nothing changes until you do. That was the night she broke, but it was also the night she was reborn. Pain has a strange power. It destroys, but it also awakens. It cracks you open and shows you what's been buried beneath fear, excuses, and comfort. That night, she realized her pain wasn't a punishment. It was a message. Life wasn't trying to break her. It was trying to wake her up. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every failure, it was all leading her to that one moment of truth. She could either keep running from the pain or face it and rise above it. And in that moment of decision, something inside her shifted forever. She looked in the mirror and saw someone she had forgotten, the real her. Not the one who tried to please everyone, not the one who lived in fear of being judged, but the woman who once dreamed without limits, who once believed she was unstoppable. The fire that had been dim for years began to burn again. She stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started declaring, "This is happening for me." That's when everything started to change. She took that pain and turned it into purpose. She used it as fuel. Every tear became motivation. Every scar became a reminder of her strength. Pain no longer controlled her. It empowered her. She learned that the moment you hit rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation of your new beginning. And as she began to rise, she discovered a truth most people never see. The worst moments of your life can become the most powerful if you choose to grow from them. Her breaking point became her turning point, because pain, when faced with courage, it doesn't destroy you. It transforms you into the person you were always meant to become. There comes a time when life demands a decision so powerful that it separates who you were from who you are meant to be. For her, that moment came after years of hesitation, years of waiting for the right time, the right opportunity, the right sign. But deep down, she knew the perfect moment was never going to arrive. The power to change wasn't out there somewhere. It was already within her. And in one defining instant, she made a decision that would change everything. Not a wish, not a hope, a decision, one backed by a level of commitment so fierce it left no room for turning back. She understood something most people never do. Life changes the moment you decide to stop negotiating with your limitations. Until that point, she had been living in the gray area, trapped between who she was and who she could be. But that day, she drew a line. She said, "No more excuses, no more waiting, no more half living." It wasn't easy. The fear didn't vanish. Her doubts screamed louder than ever. Yet, she chose to act anyway. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of it. That single decision shifted the direction of her life. Suddenly, every choice, every action, every habit began to align with her new identity. She no longer asked, "What if I fail?" She started asking, "What if I never try?" That change in language ignited something deep inside her. She stopped being a prisoner of circumstances and became the creator of her destiny. Decisions are powerful because they reshape your destiny in an instant. When she made that choice, life began to respond differently. People around her sensed her new energy. Opportunities that were once invisible began to appear. It was as if the universe had been waiting for her to finally decide who she truly wanted to be. And as the days turned into weeks, she noticed something profound. Discipline felt lighter, effort felt natural, and obstacles no longer felt like punishment, but like training. The world hadn't changed, she had. And that shift made everything else possible. The decision that redefined everything wasn't just about a career, a relationship, or a dream. It was about reclaiming her power, choosing growth over comfort, purpose over fear, and faith over doubt. In that one decision, she didn't just change her path, she changed her entire life. The greatest battles are never fought in the world around us. They're fought in the silence of our own minds. For her, the hardest fight wasn't against other people, but against the voice inside that whispered, "You're not enough." That voice had been her constant companion for years, quiet, persuasive, and cruel. It told her she wasn't smart enough, strong enough, or deserving enough to create the life she dreamed of. And for too long, she believed it. She let fear and doubt dictate her choices, convincing herself that playing small was safer than risking failure. But deep within, another voice was calling, a voice that refused to be silenced any longer. The battle within began the day she chose to listen to that second voice. The one that said, "You were meant for more." It wasn't a loud shout. It was a whisper of truth that carried strength. Yet facing that internal war wasn't easy. Doubt is clever. It wears the mask of logic. It tells you to be realistic, to stay comfortable, to protect yourself from disappointment. Fear tells you stories of what might go wrong, but never reminds you of what could go right. She realized those thoughts weren't her truth. They were her limits disguised as reason. Each day, she pushed back. She challenged every lie fear had planted in her mind. When it said, "You'll fail," she answered, "Maybe, but I'll learn." When it said, "You're not ready," she replied, "I'll grow as I go." She stopped waiting for confidence to appear and started building it through action. Because confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you create every time you face what scares you and refuse to back down. The more she acted in the face of fear, the weaker it became. Doubt still showed up, but now it didn't control her. It was simply a signal, a reminder that she was stepping into something greater. And in those moments of courage, she discovered something powerful. Fear doesn't disappear when you conquer it. It transforms into fuel. The battle within didn't end overnight, but with every victory, she grew stronger, freer, and more certain of who she was. She learned that the voice of doubt will always exist, but it no longer defines her. Because once you conquer the war inside, nothing outside can ever break you again. There was a time when she saw herself as a victim of her circumstances. Life had been unfair, people had betrayed her, opportunities had slipped away, and pain seemed to follow her like a shadow. She would wake up every morning asking, "Why is this happening to me?" That question kept her trapped in a loop of blame and disappointment. She felt powerless, waiting for someone or something to change her reality. But one day, something shifted. She realized that if she wanted her life to transform, she couldn't wait for the world to rescue her. She had to rescue herself. That was the moment the transformation began. She started to understand that every thought, every emotion, and every decision was shaping her reality. The problem wasn't that life was cruel. It was that she had been giving away her power. She had been focused on what she couldn't control instead of mastering what she could. And that realization hit her like lightning. If I created this version of my life unconsciously, imagine what I can create intentionally. That was the birth of the creator within her. She began taking full ownership of her life. No more excuses, no more blaming others, no more waiting for perfect timing. She stopped focusing on the past and started designing her future. Every morning became an opportunity to rewrite her story. Instead of replaying her pain, she asked, "What can I learn from this?" That single shift in mindset changed everything. Problems became teachers. Setbacks became training. Life stopped happening to her and started happening for her. And as her perspective changed, so did her energy. She noticed how differently people responded to her, not because they changed, but because she did. She walked taller, spoke with clarity, and carried herself like someone who knew her worth. She no longer looked at challenges as punishment, but as invitations to grow. This shift from victim to creator didn't erase her pain. It transformed it. She learned that her power wasn't in controlling what happens, but in how she responds. The moment she took responsibility for her own emotions and choices, she became unstoppable. She was no longer reacting to life, she was directing it. That's when true freedom began. Because the instant you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can I create from this?" you take back your power, and life begins to rise to meet you. There comes a moment in every journey when everything finally connects, when the noise quiets, the confusion fades, and you see yourself clearly for the first time. For her, that moment came after years of struggle, doubt, and searching. She had tried to find her power through achievement, through approval, through perfection, but nothing ever felt enough. She was doing all the right things on the outside, yet something deep within her still felt out of sync. She was living, but not truly alive. Then one day it all clicked, not through force, but through surrender. She realized that real power doesn't come from chasing. It comes from aligning who you are with what you were born to do. That realization was like a breath of truth. For the first time, she stopped trying to control everything and simply tuned in. She began listening to that quiet inner voice, the one that had always been drowned out by fear, pressure, and expectation. And as she did, something magical happened. Her thoughts, her emotions, and her actions began to move in the same direction. She was no longer torn between who she should be and who she truly was. When alignment happens, everything around you begins to respond, and she noticed how opportunities began to appear naturally, how people who matched her new energy entered her life, and how struggles that once felt impossible started to dissolve. It wasn't luck, it was resonance. She had become magnetic because she was no longer fighting her own energy. Instead of trying to force outcomes, She trusted her intuition. Instead of living in resistance, she flowed with purpose. In that state of alignment, her confidence grew effortlessly. She no longer needed validation or permission to shine. Her strength wasn't loud. It was calm, centered, and unshakable. She moved through the world with quiet certainty, knowing that life reflects who you are, not what you demand. And that was her true awakening. She discovered that the real power she'd been searching for was never out there. It had always been within her, waiting for her to remember. Once her mind, heart, and soul moved in harmony, she became unstoppable. Because when you live in alignment with your truth, you no longer chase power, you are power. And from that space, everything in your life begins to transform effortlessly. When she began her journey, she had no idea that her personal transformation would touch so many lives. At first, it was only about survival, finding her strength, healing her pain, rebuilding herself piece by piece. But as she grew, something remarkable began to happen. The energy around her shifted. People who once pitied her started to look at her with admiration. Friends who had lost their own sense of hope began asking how she did it, how she found the courage to rise again. Without realizing it, her transformation had become a mirror reflecting what was possible for others. You see, true change doesn't stay contained within you. It spreads silently, powerfully, like ripples across water. When one person chooses to rise, they unconsciously give others permission to do the same. Her strength reminded others of their own. Her confidence became contagious. Her calm presence spoke louder than words. People felt something different when they were around her, a vibration of truth, authenticity, and belief that said, you can rise too. She didn't preach or demand anyone to change. She simply lived her truth, and that became her message. Every choice she made, every boundary she set, every dream she pursued sent out a signal of what self-worth really looks like. Her courage became a quiet revolution. Those who saw her evolve began to see what was possible for themselves. Some left toxic relationships. Some started pursuing long-buried dreams. Some simply began to believe that change was possible again. Her story became proof that no matter how dark life gets, transformation is available to anyone willing to do the work. And the most beautiful part, she never set out to inspire anyone. Her only goal was to become whole again, but in doing so, she lit the way for others. That's the power of authentic growth. It radiates without effort. Now, when she looks around, she sees the impact of her journey everywhere, in the confidence of those she's touched, in the hope of those who once felt lost. She understands that her healing didn't just change her life, it shifted the lives of everyone connected to her. Because when one person transforms, the world around them transforms too. That's the ripple effect, one soul rising, creating waves of change that reach far beyond what the eye can see. And as her journey comes full circle, she stands taller, not because life became easier, but because she became stronger. The woman who once doubted herself now walks with certainty, purpose, and peace. She is living proof that no pain is wasted, no struggle is meaningless, and no dream is too far away. Remember, your breakthrough is waiting on the other side of your decision to rise. So don't wait for the world to change, become the change. Because just like her, this moment could be the one that transforms your entire life forever.